welcome back to MX24's AM Club right here. This morning has been super exciting. I hope you're enjoying yourself. If you missed out on the initial part of the show and you're just joining us, well, you haven't missed much. This is the conversation about Ghana that I think you'll be so much interested in. My name is Miriam Udwaka Menta, and I'm here with my better half. Are you my better half? You're not my better half. You're somebody's better half.
Choose your words correctly.
Carefully, Mrs.
And carefully.
Mrs.
Please.
KD is watching.
Please.
You're not my better half.
Please.
You're my other partner.
Anyways, my name is also Kojo Dasabra. Time for us to get into the Lifestyle Daily proper. Now, as Mimi said, definitely today is all about our news review, which happens to be two amazing topics. And now, the first one has to do with our forthcoming elections and the dates being changed from December 7th to November 7th. We'll get into that very shortly. And also, after 150 years, some ornaments belonging to us personally, of course, because, I mean, I'm not going to base it on only the Ashantis, because, of course, Ashanti is part of Ghana. So belonging to us, looted in 1874, is returning back to us on loan.
Has returned.
No, it's now about to come. Yes, it's 32. After the first batch ever. Aha. But joining in the conversation, who do we have here inside the studio?
Absolutely. So we have today we have a beautiful lady. How are you doing?
Fine.
But you said by the grace of God. So we have Nana Osei JC, founder and executive director of Ignite Youth Ghana. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good.
You look great. Love your outfit. And then we have Angela Asantewa Amwako. She is former USAG International Relations Secretary and social activist. Girl, this one is big packages come in small sizes.
Esawara.
Good to have you on the show.
The pleasure.
What do we kickstart from?
I think we should talk about, because you know the Otunfo Asantehene Otunfo say to two, the second, with reference to the commemoration this whole week, right? Yes, so I think we should kick off with that. But before that, let's get into some history a little bit.
Right.
Social studies, taking us way back into time. Social studies.
Correct subject.
No, it was. It was, and it still is, you know, and
yeah.
that's what has metamorphosed into history.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. So, with respect to that, in the 1873, 1874, that's the third Anglo-Ashanti War. You know, Garnet himself, Worsley, decided to take about 2,500 soldiers, British soldiers, with other soldiers, African soldiers, to fight the Ashanti Kingdom. And they won. Yes, and the Ashanti Kingdom actually had to, you know, sign a treaty. Yes. But you see, my thing here is, after 150 years, now, is it right timing for these things to come back to us on loan?
I like the tone.
On loan, sister.
Nana, do you want to take us away with
all right.
that one?
So, talking about the timing, I think it have taken long, but this year marks a significant year.
Okay.
Because this year marks 150 years since the Sovereignty War, led by Sir Garnet Worsley.
Yeah.
And then this year marks exactly 100 years since Nana Adjumani Prempeh returned from exile.
Okay.
And this same year also marks the 25th anniversary of the Asantehene Otumfuo Osentutu.
Okay.
Yes. So they bringing back artifacts that is stole. I think it is a step in the right direction, which we credit the Asantehene and then his people for, the advocacy and all of that. But yes, still, I don't think, they bringing it back on loan is a step in the right direction. Because in all, they looted about 39 artifacts. And then 7 of them ended up at the University of California in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And then about 32 of them ended up in the Victoria and then Albert Museum and then also the British Museum.
Yes.
So the one that we are receiving now is from the Fowler Museum. Yes, at University of California. Yes. So we are also expecting another set in April from the Victoria and then Albert Museum and then the British Museum as well. So it is on loan because the those museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum is a national museum.
Yeah.
and then they have strict laws that you cannot remove any artifact permanently.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they are giving it
Yeah.
to us on loan. But I'm still hoping that there will be advocacies and then there will be deliberations so that, I mean, we can get it permanent. After all, it belongs to the people of Ashanti and it belongs to Ghanaians. So I'm looking for it that, I mean, they will still continue to deliberate on it and then it will come back to us perpetuity.
Adelaide, it's going back to them in 2027.
It's really, it's a good news and a bad news at the same time, I would start with. And I think as a people, we getting a part of our history back after over close to 2 centuries. I think that is where I'll say it's a good news.
It's a good news.
Yes, but then we shouldn't jubilate over the whole issue. It's more or less like a thief comes to your house, takes your belongings, and then when you go demanding for it, he says that, you know what, I know it is yours, but then I can't give it to you again. However, since you need it to show to people, or since you need it to use it, take it. And then I'll come for it, or you return it after use. I mean, this is broad day robbery. And then I think the conversation also shouldn't end at just the exhibition stage or just the talking stage of we claiming our possessions. How about the compensation, the reparation? Quite recently, our own president, His Excellency Akufo-Addo, embarked on a reparation.
Yeah. Yes.
Embarked on a reparation conference campaign, best put, and then held a conference at the international what's the name? No, it was at the International
Conference Center.
Yes, with some couple of African statesmen.
Yeah.
And I think it's a step in the right direction. But then the call for reparation on our stolen items, you are saying just 38 on the artifact. But then beyond that, this is just what has been recorded in the Ashanti region.
Yes.
Before they came into contact with the Ashantis in the 19th century, they had already gotten to the people of Cape Coast, the people of Accra. How about those valuable, what's the name, artifacts that they claim from them that were not recorded in books, or those that even this were just artifacts that the soldiers claimed, and then their superiors got to know of, and then they put in their museum.
So for you think there's more to it?
There is, not like I think, absolutely there is more to, because we are talking of gold now. Gold has gotten a huge value. We are talking of our diamonds. We are talking about our in fact, then the silver and then some metals were rare. And they were new to the indigens. So whoever that comes into Africa
and identifies
has gotten a huge possession.
Yeah.
So I think the conversation as to whether the time has elapsed, yes, it has elapsed. They're bringing it back. It's a good thing. But then should the conversation end there is what I disagree. And we cannot do this if Africa doesn't unite to seek for something better. Bringing it on the low, then afterwards what? Are they going to pay us? And even if they're going to reparations on financial basis, how are they going to bring it? And then what plans are we as a people making to make sure that if these reparations are to come, what are the things that we are going to use it for to help the entire continent as a whole in terms of development? So I think all these things should be taken into consideration.
All right. I would like to touch on the issue of reparations. I mean, looking at the 1525 to 1867, when about 12.5 million Africans were evacuated from the land of Africa to the Americas. So out of the 12.5 million people that were sent to the land of Americas, we only had about 10.7 people that arrived. So meaning about 2 million people died during the transatlantic slavery trade. Yes, so reparations, yes, of course, reparations is due, and now we are looking at the mechanisms to go about the whole reparation thing. Because the act of slavery is a crime against humanity, and it is recognized under international law. If you look at the Nuremberg Tribunal, it defines enslavement as part of a crime against humanity. And then talking about reparations, we are due for reparations because if you look at international law, the UN Security Council passed a resolution when Iraq invaded Kuwait, and then they asked Iraq to pay some reparations to Kuwait, and then they did. And then we look at Austria when the Nazis, conquered the Jewish people and then they committed Holocaust on them. They paid the reparations to them. And then also we look at the German people when they also invaded some of the Jewish-controlled land and then they also paid reparations to them. So it is about time that they really have to formally apologize to us, number one. And then number two, they have to pay financial reparations to us. And then number three, they are supposed to return back all the stolen items. And also we are calling for debt cancellation. Yes, so these are some of the things that, I commend the President of the Republic for advocating for, as she rightly said, bringing some of the African Union leaders on board and also collaborating with the Caribbean community for them to advocate for stuff like this. So there's something that I think I really commend the President. And then we see they returning some of the looted items and all of that is also a step in the right direction that I think.
Okay, so moving forward, what does this whole process mean for the Ashantis personally? Okay. What would it mean for them?
Yes, some of these artifacts that they looted are of significant importance. Okay. Yes, because if you look at something like the ceremonial sword, for example, the Mpomponso sword like this, is used by the Asantehene to swear the oath of allegiance to the Ashanti people. Okay. And also some of his sub-chiefs also use it to swear the oath of allegiance to the Asantehene. So some of these things are of great importance because this whole thing was created 300 years ago by the legendary Confanoche. Yes, so I think it has brought the spirit back. The spirit of the Ashantis back. Because this is what their forefathers fought for, this is what they lived for, and then this is what they believed in. So they're bringing it back in a way, I think, is bringing back the spirit of the Ashanti people and then Ghana as a whole. Okay.
Now that it's going to be on loan and it's going to return back to and I like the fact that a lady spoke about having further conversations on keeping the items. So do you believe that those conversations should be had now as we're receiving the items, or you think it would then truncate the process because then they'll feel like they're not going to be getting them back? And of what significance are these things to the British? Because I have a feeling that it is for them a sign of power. Over the black people.
Dominion.
Because we have what is spiritually significant to them. Right? So for them, we still hold them in captive because we have significant things from them with us. Do you feel like that will be the conversation, or we should further probe into why they're keeping the items?
Okay, so the quest for the looted artifact to be returned to Africans has been a call even from the Greece. Yes, and so I don't think the conversation. In fact, the conversation should have started back then as they have been, but then Africans should come on board and champion much energy into making sure that we get to the end of these conversations. It's been how many? Almost 2 centuries, and the conversation, I'm sure that from generation to generation, they've been talking about it, bring us back these ornaments. Because, this ornament is a symbol of unity, identity to some people. And if they were in existence then, I'm sure that some tribes would have, that this chieftaincy dispute that we are encountering in recent times, we may not have been seeing them because there'll be something to show, something to trace that this family, that family, yes, they were there from this time to this time. But we have lost all those significant, artifacts to help us identify ourselves and then our origin. So I think the conversation has first elapsed, but then moving forward to beyond the coming of the first batch, that's the 7 artifacts, that one coming from the Foley Museum, Amlent is to stay. Those are permanent artifacts because, yes, the laws there has been rectified, yes, for us to get them permanently. Yes, beyond that, if that is possible or has been made possible, then I think that others could equally succeed. And then
I personally don't see how they can relate to it, other than it's showing power. That we still hold them in captive. If you ask me,
because because it's their ornaments and it's gold, and so is it that they wanted to keep it to sell it, but they've been able to keep it till now.
Yeah,
so if
so
they wanted to
clearing-
sell it, I
yeah.
mean, they would have sold it a
Yeah.
long time.
Okay, actually, they
But
sold
some were sold in an open market. in London.
No, but why these
the
ones?
larger
This
part
one's in
has been
particular.
sold, but then I think you see some of these artifacts were taken from the palace.
Okay.
From the palace. So obviously, and they think, I mean, there are so many historians who, when they see significant artifacts, they'll be able to recognize it, even without any scientific, technology or anything. Yeah, so I think those are of great importance. And since we have this, we have history behind each and every one of these artifacts. They got to the known and they know its significance.
yeah.
Hence, putting it in the museum will bring them much returns than probably selling them off. Yeah.
And you know, for I mean, we've heard of how when you conquer a kingdom, I'm still on that conversation of they proving power by keeping the items. You know, when you conquer a kingdom, you need to show that you actually did conquer them by having the head of the chief or showing something that you have. So these things prove that they have really control over the... And for me, that is where... Because looking through it, I'm like, there's no reason. Because these countries are very overdeveloped countries.
Yeah.
And
Why
they
do you
wouldn't
keep
need
those?
these things.
Why do you keep those?
Why do you keep the things?
They can actually even make a replica of these things and
Yeah.
return our thing back to
Exactly.
us. Okay, so this is a representation of what we used to have here. They can.
Now, you know the whites never like duplicates.
And see, and
And that's
see.
what China is doing.
they
Yeah.
never, the Western world would never want anything that is duplicated. They want the real one.
I still feel, I mean, there is more to it.
Okay.
Because why do we have the pyramid on the dollar? But the pyramid is in Egypt. Yes. So I think aside they just showcasing it, I mean, there is more to it in terms of, I mean, in terms of power or in terms of some sort of, I mean, yeah, they deriving some sort of power from it. Yes. And I also think, like she said, I mean, it's about time the African Union or the African states have to come together, collaborate with the Caribbean community for them to, I mean, do this kind of advocates. Yes, because if you look at the state of Israel, for instance, when the Holocaust was committed on the Jewish people, as I said, the state of Israel was not created. But after it was created, they still sorted for some compensation and all of that. So it is about time that, I mean, we have to come together as people of Africa with the Caribbean community in order for us to, I mean, advocate for some of these things. I mean, if you look at the United Nations Security Council, for instance, I mean, looking at the 5 permanent member states like this, I mean, it's about time that we have to have African Union also representing as a permanent state member. So these are all things that I think if we're able to come together, we can be able to champion
These conversations. And for me, as we move on in these kind of conversations, there are other significant conversations that need to come up for the freedom of the Africa, because I believe that we're still mentally not there. We're still mentally not there. Jay.
So, with all this coming into play, it's the very first time I saw the story, or I saw it on social media, they're on loan. They're on loan. Because I was like, why something that belongs to me? Why are you not giving it to me on loan? So, what do we do? I mean, you've spoken about African leaders coming together, but what do you think would be their pledges or their plea to get it back permanently? Because I don't think we do have something from them that we are also keeping, do we?
Not at all.
Their culture.
Do we? That we can also maybe probably probe into cultural exchange, bring what's ours and let us give you what
and one thing that we shouldn't lose sight of is that this whole thing is not just about Africa. It's also happening in Greece. When they looted some of their statues of Alexander the Great and this Socrates and all of that. And the Greece people are also calling for them to return those stolen goods. So it is something that, I mean, it goes beyond even Africa. But I think, I mean...
It's a global movement.
It's a global movement. But I think if we continue to push the agenda of reparations, it will be a step for us to, I mean, get all these things back. Because in seeking for reparations, we are also seeking for restitution. A restitution in the form of, I mean, they returning some of the stolen goods or some of the things that they looted during those wars and all of that. So it's a global phenomenon. It's not just about Africa.
Okay. All right.
Nigeria also had a deal on getting some Benin bronzes as well and returned to them. So again, I want to agree with you that it's a global phenomenon. It's not again. Africans have suffered the most in this.
Yeah, that's very true.
So if we make it an African conversation, it's not a call in the wrong direction at all. However, so moving on.
And before we move on, I think reading the article, the reason why they cannot release these artifacts to West, they claim it's backed by legislative proceedings. Yes. So I think if it is issue of legality, then we must tackle this this conversation on the legal basis. Yes. Bringing on all our historians, all our professionals on board. We go on the decision table. Go what's the name? What is it that made the U.S. release from the Foley University? I mean, University of California. What made them? I mean, sit back and be like, okay, finally, we want to release this goods to you. If this conversation, I mean, roundtable conversation had been had, and I think we can equally go to this, use the same mechanism, and then look at their law and see how best we can amend it. I mean, laws are made for humans and not humans for the law. So we can use what's the name? Legal means.
If that's what they're saying,
if that's what they're saying, then
go on that tangent as well.
Something can be done about it. Yeah, through using the same means.
I think the Westerners also love law. And I mean,
yeah,
because I mean, whenever you propose law to them, they're like, I'll tell you what, there's this friend of mine who, you know, went to the UK and he's studying, you know, and then he decided to come back to Ghana for a few days. Now they call him from nowhere and they're like, I mean, they wanted to find out whether this guy had really left or not. So they call him from nowhere and they're like, there's a test or there's an exams or something of that sort. And he's like, well, I already wrote to you to tell you that I'll be having a vacation process and all that. And so they're finding means and ways to just bring him back, you know, to deport him just because, I mean, just finding means and ways. I'll tell you what, this guy decided to, you know, bring in law, be a lawyer, calling them, telling them that, well, he's written to you, blah, 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 this, that. He's dead.
You know, I think at this stage where we've gotten to, we are all educated. Even if not 2/3 of our population, I mean, we'll get larger part of our population falling within the what's the name education bracket,
the literacy bracket.
Yes, so going head to head with the law shouldn't be something that we should be panicking. I mean, we have incredible lawyers in this country.
I remember that man so well.
You have?
Me, I have three. One that just graduated. I said this year I decided I will misbehave because I have lawyers who fight for me.
But it looks like a
So
profession.
I really want to come in with the issue of the law. Okay, so I think before we even call for, I mean, the legal representation and all of that, first of all, let us deal with the call.
Okay.
Yes. So, I mean, we are seeing what's happening in Gaza. They usually bombarding Gaza. And now, South Africa have gone to ICJ, bringing genocidal case against Israel. And now the court has ruled that the Israeli people should stop the act of committing genocide on Gaza. Now, they gave out the ruling. And now they have to go back to the UN Security Council for them to pass a resolution. And now we know America is backing Israel. So in that regard, definitely America is going to veto it. So it all boils down to African Union having a seat or being part of the permanent member states. And also we doing away with this veto power. Because the people that we are calling on them for them to return these artifacts and all of that are the permanent members at the Security Council. So if anything at all, and then we go to the ICJ, the International Criminal Court or something, and then they still boils back to the US Security Council for them to pass a resolution. So it is something that we have to start from. I mean, the African country, they having a permanent seat at the UN Security Council. That's when, I mean, after that, we can call for this legal representation and all of that. Because then if the court gives a ruling, it is not that binding until the UN Security Council passes a resolution.
And what in your opinion is dragging that decision to for the African to have a proper representation?
Yeah, so I think it's just because some countries want to feel so powerful and all of that. I mean, recently we heard about they voted for a ceasefire in Gaza, and then about 14 of them, about 13 of them voted for a yes, and then British didn't vote, but the US vetoed, and so meaning that all the 13 votes is nullified. So it is about, I mean, they have a reform at the Security Council, and I think, I mean, there have been the need. We have Turkey and other countries who are advocating that, I mean, it shouldn't just be about 5 countries having veto power and all of that.
But then even before we get to that stage, I think internally, we should work on ourselves as a people. See, recently, Mali, Burkina Faso, and then Cote
decided to
d'Ivoire, they've withdrawn from the ECOWAS. What is the AU doing? We don't even, we are not even, we don't hear from the AU. ECOWAS is having, is shaky, but AU is quiet. And Africa, we can't do anything without these organizations spearheading whatever advocacy that we do. I mean, if we ourselves, we are not united, how then do we take a united
But
front
don't
to
you
this?
think, this conversation came up, I think, during this weekend, and I was very emotional about it, because I'm like, if you are part of an organization that you feel like is not fighting for your interests, because you remember when the whole NSAS thing happened in Nigeria, and at the time our president was the chairman of the ECOWAS. There were calls on him. In fact, social media had to go on a total uproar for a response to be gotten at a time that we needed it. So don't you feel like they are just frustrated about the fact that they're not getting the kind of results that they need from these bodies? So we might as well just be out of it. Don't you think that's what this could be?
That's exactly.
So they should be more effective. These organizations are not there to be a statue to be looking into people's faces and be getting per diem. It is for the people. It's for the African people. The African people need a voice, and to be represented, you need people that care about you to represent you. And if they feel like, because they had to take powers into their own hands at some point to get certain things fixed in their own country, then we might as well just run our countries by ourselves.
Right. Just like when this incident of coup came in, these people felt like, as our leaders, you should have come to the round table. We should have come to a round table discussion. You listen to our side of the story. We listen to your side. Then we come to an agreement. But they feel in a way that our leaders are listening to the Westerners. So the Westerners, they also think that those leading the coup also think that their major problem are the Westerners. So if they don't see you as someone taking a neutral stand, then they wouldn't believe whatever that you say, because at the end of the day, there's mistrust in your judgment and then in your actions. Right. So, I mean, Africa as a whole, just like Kwame Nkrumah envisioned, once we have a united front and the United States of Africa, then whoever that comes, before anyone can come into Africa, the person must go to that leader who sits on a round table with all the heads of state to make a decision. So until that is actualized, trust me, the AU becomes a toothless bulldog. The ECOWAS becomes becomes a ceremonial organization, and then nothing is achieved at the end of the day.
Ceremonies.
Right. Look at Congo. We are suffering. The evidence are glaring. Even look at Ghana. I won't go far. Unemployment rate. Students graduate, and then what's left? Nothing. Yet when they say, I'm not saying they should be cool, but based on these instances, that's why there are coups in other countries. So if if other people decide that we are liberating our country from democracy, because we feel like democracy is not the best practice, not like democracy is not the best practice, but
it's not being executed the way we felt it would.
Right, to do our people any good. Hence,
let's take it from there.
Right. And instead of you to, in fact, this issue is happening across all the African countries. I think with the exception of those, the Northern Africans who don't even recognize themselves as Africans. In fact, the whole situation is even messed up. So
they said they are Arab Africans.
They are Arab Africans. They are not Africans.
They can't even associate themselves with them because they are embarrassed. Looking at the poverty and everything that we find ourselves in. So please, before we can even match up to UN and have a seat in the council, we need to work on ourselves and aim for a united Africa.
You said something very significant. Like, we need to be a united force before we can even seek for any form of recognition anywhere. Because for this kind of conversations, again, when we go into the African countries and we start looking for artifacts and things that have been taken, it's only Ghana and Nigeria speaking right now. If other countries begin to speak, you realize that maybe what they even took from Ghana is something small.
Right.
Liberia hasn't spoken yet about what they need back from them. But that country has been really brutalized. That country has gone through a lot and is still going through a lot.
The Congos.
The Congos.
Nigeria, looking at the populations and their land size and then their population. A lot.
My God.
So
for me, I believe that these countries are not removing themselves because they feel like we want to be on their own, but because they're feeling like these organizations are not serving their purpose.
Yeah,
Because I remember that year, oh my God, social media was on fire. I don't know which journalist didn't talk.
Yeah.
And which activist didn't speak on this conversation. And he had to take social media to get the chairman of the ECOWAS to speak at the time. That's crazy.
Yes.
Serious.
If you ask me.
Serious.
Anyways, yes, of course, you're still logged in into MX24. This is Lifestyle Daily. We have Nana Osei and Angela. I beg your pardon, I did say Adelaide. Probably you look like an Adelaide that I know. So I'm very sorry about that. But time for us to switch from, the 150 years and Otumfuo and moving straight into our forthcoming elections. And there's this discussion going on. Should we change the date that has been approved for elections to be held from December 7th to November 7th? And this has brought in a lot of confusion. Everybody is saying their own. The NDC is saying, hey, there be that. There be that. Don't try it. And even for the fact that, well, the EC is saying that they want it to be public holidays. That's the question. So I'll throw it off to
They had the
first.
meeting on Thursday. And so the outcome of the meeting is what we're going to touch on.
All right, so as you already know, the Electoral Commission mandated by Article 45 of the 1992 Constitution mandate them to, organize public elections and all of that. Yes, so the date for the election is not specified in our Constitution, but then the Constitution in Article 63 Clause 2 gives a time frame that, the election shouldn't be earlier than 4 months and not be later than 1 month. So meaning that it has to be within the space of 3 months.
3 months.
Yes. So we are looking at September 7th to December 7th because January 7th is when the new president will be sworn in. Yes. So the Electoral Commission coming up with a new proposal that they want to change with the CI that they want to change the election date and all of that. When we're looking at law, it is within the confines of the Constitution. Yeah, but my challenge has to do with the fact that looking at the time frame. Because we have about 9 months to election, and I'm looking at logistically whether the Electoral Commission have the logistics or can really organize a free and fair election within this short period of time, bringing it to November 7th. Of course, they are giving out genuine reasons like the SDA and then some other Ghanaians calling for it to be changed to the November 7th. But I'm looking at the logistics support that they have to be able to organize within this time frame. Not to say that of course, there are also other benefits that we can also derive. Should in case there is a runoff, sometimes they don't have ample time to organize the runoff elections. But if you organize the elections on the November 7th, of course, we can have ample time to prepare for a runoff and all of that. But I still think we should maintain the December 7th. If anything at all, we can plan 2028. That's when we can really put things in place proper, and then we can come to the November 7th.
My challenge again, I'm sorry. My challenge again will be that at what point did the EC feel like it was necessary to change the time and the dates because I started hearing the conversation of, what time we'll finish our elections by 3 p.m. That I heard in 2023 or 2022. And it sounded like, okay, well, decisions are in, they're making plans for election 2024. Now we're in 2024, February. And we were still not clear whether we're finishing at 3 or we're even voting on the 7th of December. So again, timelines are very disturbing. Angela?
Yeah. Before I get to that, I'll say preparation towards election 2024 on the part of the EC, there have been a lot of updates and then new development, starting from emission of the indelible ink, and then the use of initially proposed use of the Ghana card as a means of registration, and then the back and forth from members of parliament and then from the entire people of Ghana. Then eventually we have to bring in the guarantors, the guarantor system also. This has been interesting development. To one extent, I see that to be positive because, an institution needs to be innovative. And at the end of the day, we are all looking at a body that seeks to conduct a free and fair and as well as a transparent election. There are back and forth on the conversation, but then I think change is the only thing that is not constant in human existence. So it's good for all those ideas to be welcomed. But then my problem here is these what's the name? This day changing date came right after the SDA, that's the Seventh-day Adventist Church petition Parliament that the date should be shifted. Because it collides with their
Well, we have had an election on Sunday before.
7th December is rotational.
Exactly.
It could fall on Monday,
Saturday.
a Saturday,
So
Sunday.
what's the point?
So what is the problem? So what is the point?
What is the point?
If it's 7th December coming 2024 will fall on a Saturday, which implies that the past 7th December 2023 fall on what's the name? A Friday.
A Friday, which means a Muslim also had to.
Right.
And it's not as if it is going to be something continuous. Every Saturday we are going to vote on it. It's just a one-time thing.
So if we have to put it at 7th November, and then coming 2028, it falls on a Saturday, are we going to change it again? My point here is, if the Electoral Commission is being innovative about the entire process, I have no problem with that. But then if it's as a result of a religious opinion, that's why they are acting. They're acting on a religious opinion, then I think we have a problem there.
We have a bigger problem than a big election.
There are funny reasons
there.
for November 7th and December 7th. Now, November 7th would fall on a Thursday, if I'm right. And now
Tuesday.
On a Tuesday, sorry. And what they're saying is, well, if it falls on a Tuesday, in fact, somebody came out and I was very, very shocked as to the reasons to it, because I don't know whether the person just felt like, well, let me just be shambolic about it and, talk. But how is it that, the person was like, if, let's say, December 7th, which falls on a Saturday, and the person was like, President Akufo-Addo is a Saturday born, so they know definitely he will win. So now, no, he is actually a Wednesday born, so they should push it to November 7th. You get it. And then Mama is also a Saturday born, so they should keep it at December 7th. You get me? There's so many theories, so many misconceptions.
That is someone just trying to be
but I want to ask you, we're just wrapping it up. I'll start with Nana. Should we stick with December 7th, or you feel November 7th would work?
We have to stick with the December 7th.
Why?
Because they are not giving genuine reasons. If it is about religious reasons, then I think we should stick to December 7th.
Okay.
But if the EC has other concrete reasons, that maybe something like a runoff, like I gave, or maybe other things that they feel like, let's change it to November 7th.
But that's one of their reasons.
Yeah, but
that's the reason.
But they are anchoring their case on the SDA, and some Ghanaians calling for it to be changed too.
Okay.
Is she SDA though? Maybe
we should look into that.
Yeah, because that will also go against her beliefs, and that also very that can be challenging because if you're going to put a Muslim in a room and tell them to pray shakaba shakaba because Christians are in the room, then you're going against their personal, and then so that's an extended conversation that we need to have. We need to know where she stands, why it's even a consideration. Because this is a conversation. It's a no-brainer. If you ask me, it's a no-brainer.
Religion shouldn't affect our national discourse at all.
Let's hear from you.
Not at all. I think I'll put the SDAs under Christians as a Christian religion. So Ghana is not a Christianized state. We are made up of multi-religious bodies and all that. So in matters of logic, religion needs to be set aside.
Okay.
In matters of election, religion needs to be set aside. Our mothers in the house who are not used to the social medias, who have voted on December 7th for the longest period of time that they could think of, knows that on December 7th, I need not to mess my schedule. I have to go and vote on December 7th every 4 years. If we are to change this November 7th, she seeks the EC seeks to promote help the citizenry to come out in their numbers to vote. That is the whole rationale behind this change and all that. But then we'll end up doing ourselves a lot of harm if the date is changed, because November 7th, there are no jobs. School fees are being paid every now and then. You ask me to forfeit my work and then go and vote. What? There are youth who are working for... That's why
they added it to be a public holiday. Do you accept that?
Public holiday?
Yeah.
It shouldn't.
Warming
it
up to
should-
December, you already
Myself,
know
the
how
kind
the
of work I
country-
do, public holiday, I don't
not
get
recognized.
holidays. I work for a Chinese company, and then whether holiday or no holiday,
working.
I still go to work. So, and I mean, most Ghanaians do, because I mean, of late, most of our factories belongs to the foreigners.
Okay.
So, I think December 7th, which especially is a Saturday, you find most of these youth. These
home.
Ghanaians at home should be the ideal
And
day.
I'm mentally prepared for the thing because everybody is ready for elections
Right,
2024.
right.
If you agree or disagree, you can get onto our
Can I say
socials
something
and
quickly?
you know.
I also think, I mean, this whole thing about changing the day, they have to organize, it has to be a national discourse.
Okay.
Yeah, because it is a representative government,
Okay.
and sovereignty resides in the people.
Okay.
So I think they have to bring stakeholders on board, bring in the electorate, and also those who are going to vote, and then the IPAC.
Okay.
I mean, so it has to be a national discourse for everybody to agree on the precise
But
day.
you know
we-
that all these, after all these suggestions, the IC is not bound to take the input after these stakeholders engagements. Although sometimes it plays a role, but then we just have to plead.
My biggest problem.
We just have to
problem. Angela, thank you so much, Nana. Thank you
We
so
just
much
have to plead
for,
with them.
for joining us. But my biggest problem is that why are we having that in an election year? Thank you all so much for joining us.
Yeah.
We can extend the conversation onto our social media platforms. Please get interactive with us. Let us know what you feel, how you feel about these conversations. Jay.
Definitely, we would put that poll on our socials, especially on X. So get ready for that one at MX24GH. Do you feel that December 7th should be changed to November 7th, or we should just keep it for our elections? Well, that's a wrap for Lifestyle Daily for today. Time for us to plug in
Plugging in.
someone special, a
Yes.
sister. And yes, I do know you will enjoy the conversation. So we'll be right back after this.
Absolutely.